Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will learn from personal stories and explore thought-provoking topics, all with one goal in mind: living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the On Purpose podcast. As always, I'm honored and humbled to be here with you again this week as we move into the month of November. One of my favorite months. Not only is it my birthday month, but I love Thanksgiving. I love the food and the family, and I love fall. So Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays of the year. So wish all of you an early happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate that. And this week, I'm going to get a little personal here. I wanted to share something I've been working on for a while and then I actually wrote about in my book. But I really never told a story about it on the podcast. I thought it was time to merge a little bit of the two. But before I do that, I want to thank all of our Patreon members who are helping through their financial contributions and generosity to help. They're allowing us to continue to grow this podcast and to reach our goal of not necessarily being the biggest. I don't need blue check marks by everything. That's not my goal. But I want to be one of the most impactful podcasts in the world. I want to be a podcast that creates thought-provoking conversations and ideas and changes the status quo of how we're living our lives, what we're seeking in our lives, and realize that we can do more, we can do better. That maybe we owe it to ourselves and those around us to become the best versions of ourselves. So thank you for our Patreon members who will help me continue to grow and do this. And if you're interested in joining us, visit patreon.com/the On Purpose podcast, and you'll find membership options there to suit your budget needs and that help us reach our goals. So this week I want to talk about being alone but not lonely. Alone but not lonely. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. This has been a struggle for me most of my life. Most of my life, if I was by myself, I was very anxious, very unhappy, oh my God, what am I going to do by myself? I got to go find something to do. I would work more. I would just stay busy to avoid being by myself because I didn't like my thoughts. I didn't necessarily like who I was. And when I think back to when did this start, it really started for me when I was like 10 years old and we moved outside Washington, D.C. And I didn't fit in at all. And nobody liked me and nobody wanted me around and I was not accepted for who I was. And it was a culture shock because I had came from a place where I was just a normal kid. I fit in with other people. I was doing pretty good in school. Athletics were always awesome. Like I loved it. And then this move changed everything. It wasn't a place where I no longer sought to thrive or to become my best self, but I literally just tried to survive. And I remember that first year we moved there, every day at lunch, somebody would fight me for being different. And it was like a game to all the other kids to see who was going to fight me. And I used to, go home at night and just dream and pray that I could wake up being different than who I was so that I would fit in a little more. I would just ask the world, God, the universe, whatever it is we believe in, could you just change me so that I could be what I was, so I could just be happy like I used to be? And obviously it never happened. And then sadly, to try to fit in, I did things. I made decisions and I took actions that I wasn't proud of and that weren't true of who I wanted to be. But I did them to try to see if they would ease the pain. If they could provide some comfort. If by doing things that I didn't believe in, that I knew weren't right, that went against everything I believed in up until that point in life, if I did these things, would just people leave me alone? Could I have friends again? Would I be accepted? The truth was I was lost. And I was looking externally for validation, for acceptance, but inside I was completely broken. I didn't have a true North Star to navigate me, and the crazy thing is, as much as I was isolated on the outside and tried to find acceptance, I was equally isolated on the inside. I was simply surviving, physically, mentally, emotionally. No longer was joy and happiness my goal. It was just literally to get through a day. And what I didn't realize was that I took that uncomfortableness into my adult life. Even though by adulthood I fit in and I had plenty of friends and social circles, yet internally I was still uncomfortable with myself. On the external side, I would be overly confident, almost cocky, arrogant in things so that people couldn't see beyond my facade. The truth is, deep down inside, I didn't like me. I didn't like who I'd become or what I was doing. Sitting by myself, being alone was uncomfortable and something I'd avoid at all costs. Work more shifts, stay busy, or doing anything to avoid being alone with myself, my thoughts, my doubts, some of my truths. It wasn't really until the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns and the isolation that I realized I didn't truly like myself. And the forced silence, the mandatory slowdowns, the truth lingered longer and longer. The quiet brought about a voice that let me know I had some work to do on the inside. And when I didn't want to acknowledge it, when I didn't want to accept that truth, it came out of me in the form of irrational outbursts to my loved ones. Anxiety attacks for the first time in my life that took my breath away. And doubts about what my future held. See, all of this was impacting the type of husband, father, and friend I was to those I loved the most. Being alone with only my thoughts forced me to see my truths and allowed me to seek acceptance for me. Helped me realize I no longer needed to be little Jerrod that fought so hard to fit in. I no longer was in survival mode, so I didn't need the wall around my emotions that protected me but kept others from really getting close to me. As I journaled and I wrote and I ran to just have my thoughts come out through sweat, I started to realize I liked myself better when I cried. I felt more human when I reached out and asked for help. Or when I went and initiated a conversation to let someone know I wasn't okay. And by getting to like myself better, by releasing a lot of the stuff I had been carrying, I got to appreciate more all the beauty around me. The beauty in nature, the beauty in people. Instead of relationships being based on jealousy and envy for what other people had or what they seemed to have, finding internal peace allowed me to approach relationships with much more curiosity of their story, their path, their journeys. You see, it was in that quiet time that I found peace with myself. That I found love for myself. In a world that distracts us and allows us to be connected 24/7, 365, all that did was allow me to hide from my truth, to be distracted from the work I need to do within. What many of us need, and what I certainly needed, was less connection to technology. More time away from all the Google machines and everything that fills our days, the scrollings, the likes, the thumbs ups, the 5-star reviews, the blue check marks. The time disconnected allowed me to heal, love myself, and understand that my shortcomings, my imperfections, are part of some of the best parts of the story of my life. So I thought I would share that to our community this week, to ask you to look at how you're feeling about yourself, what you're seeing when you look in the mirror. And are we distracting ourselves from the internal work that will help us heal and move forward? Are we distracted through social media and just busyness to avoid having truthful conversations with ourselves? And if we are, let's stop for a minute. Let's turn off technology. Let's disconnect. Let's write. Let's journal. Write down the things that we're not proud of, the things that hurt us from the past, and see if we can't find peace with them. Work through them. And I know, and it's crazy to me, but sometimes I forget that some of y'all don't know I wrote a book. So if you're interested, that story actually goes deeper and has its own chapter in the book, Extraordinary People in Ordinary Places, which is available for purchase on Amazon. We're actually coming up on our 2-year anniversary of the book being released. So hop over there if you're interested. It's a good read. It's much like the podcast, in which we have a chapter and a story, and then we have writing prompts and questions for the reader at the end of each chapter to reflect on the story in their own lives. And I'd be honored if the On Purpose community followed me over to Amazon for my book writing. So again, alone but not lonely. Give that some thoughts this week, and I'd love to hear back from you on any of the social media, or email directly at onpurpose.official@gmail.com. Thank you again for allowing me this space in your week and in your lives, and have an awesome week. And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.